Hey everyone, welcome again to Sunday School. We've kind of had a break for the last couple Sundays, I think, or maybe one Sunday. But anyways, we're back. Not back, but we're back to doing Sunday School like this. So we've been talking and making our way through the Old Testament. We've looked at Adam and Eve, creation, Noah. We're going to take a jump here, and we're going to move to Joseph. And the story of Joseph, not Joseph, Jesus' father, but Joseph, Jacob's son. And so what I want to do today is I want us to look at Joseph, and I want us to look at three specific things about him. The first one, was Joseph humble? Now, if we know the story of Joseph, we're going to look at, is he humble? And humble meaning, does he not brag? Is it not about himself? The second one is, how does Joseph respond to life? How does he respond to all the different circumstances that get thrown at him in his life? And the third one is, how is Joseph a picture of Christ? Or what does Joseph do that Christ did? And so we're gonna look at all of these things, but before we do, I want to show you guys a little video. It's a funny video. It's going to get us laughing, but it gives us the overall picture of Joseph's life. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Joe. Hey, Dad. Hey. Oh, I see you still got that limp.
Yeah, old wrestling wound right there. Yeah. All right, let me look at you, boy. Oh, yeah, you're my favorite. You are my favorite, Joe.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks.
You are such my favorite that I made you something.
Yeah?
Made you a coat.
Oh.
Made you a coat. Look at that. Yeah, you like that, huh? You like that? I made you a coat. Of many different colors, because I couldn't just pick one. I had to do it all. Yeah.
You could have picked one.
No. Woo.
Wow, that is, Dad,
like
this is so nice. It's so nice. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to fold it real neatly and put it in a drawer where no one can see it and where it will not get hurt. I'll just do that. Is that cool?
Oh, I see. Oh. So you don't want to wear my coat, huh?
What?
Oh, no big deal. Don't wear your papa's coat that he made you. That's fine. Took me twice as long because I have this limp, but don't you worry about a thing. Don't you worry about a thing. All I did was wrestle God so you could have favor and blessings, but no, don't you worry. Deceive my own brother, hairy thing, just to try to, make my family a little bit better. Don't you worry about a thing. Don't you worry about a thing. Don't try to...
What is this feeling inside?
Oh, yeah. That's an order of guilt with a little side of shame that I made for you right there, yeah.
How do I make it go away?
You don't. You just rearrange it in your life. That's all there is to it. But here's what you do. You want to please Papa, don't you? Want to please your Papa? Then put on the coat. Want to please Papa? Please Papa.
Fine. Okay, Papa, don't preach, okay? I'm in trouble deep, but I've made up my mind. I'm going to wear the coat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is nice. Back in my day, for us to see colors like that, we had to bang our head against a wall. Yeah. But you just get it for free because you're my favorite. Yeah. What do you think?
I think it looks like a Care Bear threw up on me.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. I want you to wear that around with pride because you're my favorite.
Yeah. I get it, Captain Guilts-a-Lot. I get it, all right?
Hey, do your brothers know you're my favorite?
I think they do.
I'm going to go tell them.
No, you don't have to.
He's my favorite.
And he was his favorite. And look, Jacob had no problem telling his other sons that Joseph was his favorite, and that tended to cause some problems between Joseph and his brothers. Hey, Simeon.
Hey, Joe, what's going on?
Just wearing my coat.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been.
Do you see the coat Dad gave me?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, you've been wearing that sucker around town all the time.
I know, it is so cool.
I don't know about that. No,
Yeah. Jealous.
Not really. No.
Hey, did Dad give you a coat?
No, he didn't give me or our other brothers coats after we realized we couldn't measure up in Dad's eyes compared to you. We just stopped caring, I guess.
Oh, man, that's crazy. I stopped listening to you a few minutes ago. But anyway, what I've learned is it's really all about me. So, in fact, speaking of me, I'm glad you brought it up. Here's the thing. I had this dream the other night. Do you ever have dreams?
No, we stopped dreaming too ever since,
Yeah, well, anyway, again, I don't care. But here's the deal, okay? I had this dream. It was so crazy. Like, in my dream, like, I was awesome, which seems real. And you guys were all, like, bowing down to me, you know? I mean, can you imagine how cool that would be? Like, there's me, and you guys bowing down to me, and all of a sudden this music started playing, and it was all like, go, 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 Joseph, you know what I mean? Go, 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 Joseph, here in my dream. What do you think about that?
That's what I think about that. And that's what they did think about that. These brothers, they got jealous. They were just disenchanted with life. Instead of focusing on them and what God had for them, they focused so much on Joseph and what he had. Instead of getting better, they got bitter.
And the truth of the matter is, things didn't get better for Joseph. Joseph was beaten up by his brothers. He was sold into slavery. He ends up in Egypt. And while he's in Egypt, he's working for a man named Potiphar. Now, Potiphar's a good man. Potiphar takes care of Joseph. He respects Joseph and puts Joseph in charge of everything. But you know how it is. In the midst of when everything seems to be going right, all of a sudden, temptation rears its ugly head. And did I say it was an ugly head?
Hello, Joseph. How are you, Joseph? Joseph.
Are you Potiphar's wife?
Oh, yes. Yes. Joseph, you are like a red hot chili pepper, Joseph. I would just like to sop you up with a biscuit, Joe.
This is my temptation. Man, the Old Testament stinks.
Joseph, I tell you what, why don't we go back? I have a proposition for you. Why don't we go back to my place? I have Maroon 5 on my playlist, and we can do what Al Green sings about. How about that?
What does he sing about?
Let's get it on. What's the matter?
I just threw up in my mouth. And it was much better than what you just described. Mrs. Potiphar's wife, are you trying to seduce me?
Is it working?
Not so much.
It's either me or jail, baby. It's me or jail.
I'm having trouble telling the difference.
So just a brief overview of Joseph's life here. If you got your Bibles with you guys today, I want you to turn to Genesis chapter 37. We're taking a huge jump in our Old Testament look and going to Genesis 37. Genesis 37, we're going to go 5 through 11, and then we're going to jump to Genesis 39. So Genesis 37, we're going to read verses 5 through 11. And again, we're going to start to ask the question, was Joseph humble? Was Joseph humble in how he interacted with his siblings? Was Joseph humble with how he interacted with his dad? So this is what we're going to look like. Genesis 37, 5 through 11 says this. I've got to find it really quick. It said, then Joseph had a dream, When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. There we were, binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly my sheaf stood up, and your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." "Are you really going to reign over us?" his brother asked him. "Are you really going to rule us?" So they hated him even more because of his dream and what he had said. Verse 9, then he had another dream and told it to his brothers. "Look," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." He told his father and brothers, and his father rebuked him. "What kind of dream is this that you have had?" he said. "Am I and your mother and your brothers really going to come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Again, now jump to chapter 39, 1 through 9. Okay, it says this. Now Joseph had been taken to Egypt, and an Egyptian named Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, and the captain of the guards bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him there. Then the Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, serving in the household of the Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord had made everything he did successful, Joseph found favor with his master and became his personal attendant. Potiphar also put him in charge of the household and placed all that he owned under his authority. From that time on, he put in charge of the household and all he owned. The Lord blessed the Egyptian's house because of Joseph. The Lord's blessing was on all that he owned, in his house and in his fields. He left all that he owned under Joseph's authority. He did not concern himself with anything except the food that he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. After some time, his master's wife looked longingly at Joseph and said, "Sleep with me." But he refused. "Look," he said to his master's wife, "with me here my master does not concern himself with anything in this house, and he has put all that he owns under my authority. No one in this house is greater than I am. He has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. So how could I do this immense evil, and how could I sin against my God?" Although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her. Now one day he went into the house to do his work, and none of the household servants were there. She grabbed him by his garments and said, "Sleep with me." But leaving his outer garment in her hand, he escaped and ran outside. And now I want to jump to chapter 45. I know we're taking big jumps here, but chapter 45 of Genesis. And I want to look at verses 1 through 8. 45 verse 1. Said, Joseph no longer could keep his composure in front of all of his attendants. So he called out, "Send everyone away from me." No one was with him when he revealed his identity to his brothers. But he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and also Pharaoh's household heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But they could not answer him because they were terrified in his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Please come near." And they came near. "I am Joseph, your brother," he said, "the one you sold into Egypt. And now don't be grieved or angry with yourselves for selling me here, because God has sent me ahead of you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there will be 5 more years without plowing or harvesting. God sent me ahead of you to establish you as a remnant within the land and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. Therefore, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He had made me a father to Pharaoh, Lord of his entire household, and ruler over the land of Egypt." So the question is, was Joseph humble? Really, if we go back to the very first thing in Genesis 37, Joseph has those dreams. Is humbleness portrayed in those dreams that he had? Think about a little kid. A little kid gets this great gift from a parent. What does he do? He goes around sharing it with everyone. "Look what my parents gave me. Look at this. Check this out. Isn't this the most amazing gift my parents gave me?" Now, Joseph's circumstance, do you think that he did that with the coat, with his siblings? Do you think that him sharing these dreams wasn't like, "Hey, look at this dream I had"? So was Joseph humble? I would kind of say no. but I'd kind of say yes. And here's why. So was Joseph humble? Well, he probably bragged about his coat. He probably bragged about his favoritism. Probably bragged on his dreams. But then there's a turning point in the story, and we're going to get to that turning point in the story with his brothers and how they respond. But think about that. If we know the story of Joseph, we know Joseph gets sold into slavery by his brothers. Do you think that was a humbling experience for him? Getting thrown into a well and then getting ultimately sold and winding up in Egypt? Well, and like I said, yes, he was not humble, and no, he was humble. Because if you think about it, once he's put in charge of Potiphar's house, he responds by just doing what he's asked to do. He has this high social standing with Potiphar. And for someone who is not humble, he could have given in to Potiphar's wife, but he didn't. He chose, no, I can't do that. And then jumping ahead to his life and with Pharaoh. Again, humbleness, right? And look what Pharaoh did for him, not because of how great Joseph was. When he came to Pharaoh, he was his prisoner, right? So was Joseph humble? Yes. Was Joseph humble? No. I mean, think about us. There's times where we're humble, and there's times where we're not humble, right? And that's the same thing we can see with Joseph. Now we're going to jump down to, we're going to skip a little section. We're going to skip on how does Joseph respond to life. I want you guys to dig into that a little bit later during the digging in time. And I wanted to look at, I want you to look at how Joseph's brothers respond to life and how back and forth they respond to each other. But I want to look at how Joseph responds to life. Genesis 39. We're going to go back now. Genesis 39. 39, 1 through 6. Joseph, we read this, right? Joseph in Potiphar's house. It said, let's look at verse 3. Let's go to 2. It says, the Lord was with Joseph, and he became successful in serving in the household of the Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and the Lord made everything he did successful, Joseph found favor with his master, and he became his personal attendant. Potiphar also put him in charge of his household, and placed all that he owned under his authority. How does Joseph respond by being put into this position? What does he do? He goes to work, right? Everything he does, God blesses him. What doesn't he do? We don't see him whining. We don't see him complaining. We see him doing what he's supposed to do, responding to the job at hand. Think about us as high school or junior high students when we're asked to wash some dishes or unload the dishwasher. It's like, oh, do I really have to? Or if we're right in the middle of something, our response is, give me a second. Or, I told you I would do that, right? Joseph doesn't do that. His response is, he just does. If we jump ahead, even in the life of Joseph, if we jump to verse 19, this is after the whole Potiphar incident, Potiphar's wife incident. Joseph winds up in jail, right? And this is what it says. Verse 19, when the master heard the story his wife told him, these are the things your slave did to me, he was furious and had him thrown into prison where the king's prisoners were confined. So Joseph was there in prison. 21, but the Lord was with Joseph and extended kindness to him. He granted him favor with the prison warden. The warden put all the prisoners who were in the prison under Joseph's authority and was responsible for everything that was done there. The warden did not bother with anything under Joseph's authority because the Lord was with him and the Lord made everything that he did successful. Again, guys and gals, what does it say? What does it show us? What does Joseph do? What does he not do? doesn't whine. We don't read that he whines or complains in here. In other scriptures, we do read about people whining and complaining, right? But what does he do? He goes to work. Not only does he go to work, but God blesses him, right? God takes care of him. God provides for him. The guard who is over all the prisoners is like, hey, take care of it. You just deal with it. And last but not least, Genesis 40:14 to 22 says this. And this is now with Joseph in Pharaoh's court, wherein he becomes second in command with Pharaoh. Verse 14 starts with this. After Joseph winds up telling Pharaoh about the dream, verse 18, this is Joseph's interpretation of the dream. This is the interpretation, Joseph replied. The 3 baskets are 3 days. In just 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up. No, I don't want to. We're going to jump down further. 41:37. Joseph shares Pharaoh. Pharaoh has the dream. 7 really fat cows are grazing, right? Just abundance of beef on these cattle. And then out of the Nile River comes 7 scrawny cows that are like wasting away to nothing. And the 7 scrawny cows eat the 7 really beefy cows. And Pharaoh's perplexed and can't figure out what this dream means. And all of Pharaoh's magicians and soothsayers and all this stuff can't figure out what is meant by this, but Joseph does. And it's not Joseph, it's actually God. So this is what it is. Verse 41 said this. Pharaoh also said to Joseph, see, I am placing you over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, clothed them with fine linen garments, and placed a gold chain around his neck. He had Joseph ride in his second chariot, and his servants called out before him, make way. So he placed him over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and no one will be able to raise his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt without your permission. Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphatha-Paneah, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, and gave him a wife. And again, Joseph, responding to the circumstances at hand, doesn't whine, goes to work. And we know later on that because Joseph's interpretation was correct and they stored up, there was enough food to go around. Here's the thing, guys. We can see so many instances in Joseph's life where Joseph responds to the matter at hand. Doesn't whine, doesn't complain, just responds. But we can see other instances in Joseph's life where he maybe brags. Really, if you think about it, getting thrown into a well, getting sold into slavery, winding up in prison would be a humbling experience for somebody. But again, there was 3 areas I wanted to look at. Was Joseph humble? How did Joseph and his brothers respond to life? And we just looked at Joseph respond to life. I want to give you guys time later on to look at how do his brothers respond to life. Now I want to look at how is Joseph a picture of Christ. And here's what I want us to do. If you have your Bible, I want you to turn to Genesis 42. And we're going to look at Genesis 45, sorry. Genesis 45, verse 1 through 8. We've read this already, right? But the story is this. Joseph hides his identity from his siblings when they first come. He wants to test to see if they've changed their ways. So he gives them all of this food and basically says, okay, you're spies though, so here's what I want. One of you has to stay and I want everyone to come back. Right? And so they do, and Joseph does all of these things, right? He hides his cup in one of the bags and then says, I'm going to kill this one. And one of the brothers says, no, you can't do that. Take my life and spare him. And Joseph, seeing that his brothers changed, his response is this. Joseph could no longer keep his composure in front of them all. He asked his attendants to leave, and he starts crying, and he says, I'm your brother Joseph. I'm your brother Joseph that you sold into slavery. I'm your brother Joseph. Everything that you did to me, God meant for good. God brought me to where I'm at so I could save you, so I could keep you as his chosen people. But think about that. What did Joseph have the right to do? Think about that. What would we have done in that situation? What have we destroyed? Not even cared? Just brought the hammer down upon his siblings? You sold me into slavery. Now look where I'm at. So here's what's going to happen, right? I think we all would do that. That would be our first inclination. And I'm wondering if that was Joseph's first inclination. It was like, how can I mess with them? I want to mess with them. But if you look at the end of Joseph's life, he's like, hey, I'm here to save you guys. How is that a picture of Christ? Joseph forgave his siblings. He forgot the transgressions that his sibling did. Not forgot like, I can't remember exactly what happened, but forgot to the point of, I'm not going to hold it against you. He had compassion, right? He had compassion on his siblings. And not only that, he had grace. Grace, unmerited favor. Grace, something his siblings did not deserve. His siblings deserved, by our standards, punishment for what they did. They lied. They cheated. Right? They do this cover up. But he had grace. How then is that a picture of Christ? I want to read a couple scriptures to you guys. I want to read 1 Peter verse 3 through 18. 1 Peter chapter 3, 1 Peter 3 verse 18 says this. For Christ also suffered for sins once for all, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring you to God. He was put to death in the flesh, but made alive by the Spirit. God put Jesus to death for our sins. First Peter writes, the righteous, the person who is correct in everything and righteous for people who are unrighteous. That's grace. God put Jesus to death so that we could be saved. God put a perfect person, a perfect being. God put his son to death so that we could come to know him. It's grace. Now I want to read you Matthew 26, 47 through 50. This is when Jesus is on the cross. (26, 47 through 50). It says this, while he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, suddenly arrived, and a large mob with swords and clubs was with him from the chief priests and the elders of the people. His betrayer had given them a sign. The one I kiss, he's the one to arrest. So they immediately went up to Jesus and said, greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. Friend, Jesus asked, why have you come? Then they came up and took hold of Jesus and arrested him. Jesus, knowing that he was going to be betrayed, knowing that he was going to be being led to the cross, he willingly went with these men to die. Think about that. Again, grace. Willingly sacrificing himself for us. Joseph could have done whatever he wanted in that situation. Joseph could have responded to his siblings the same way that his siblings responded to him. And again, like I mentioned, we would have probably done the opposite of what Joseph did. We would have held it against our siblings. We'd have thrown them to jail. We'd have made them our slaves. But he didn't do that. He forgave them. He loved them. He missed them. And Jesus did that very same thing for us. Think about it. One moment he's riding into town on a donkey and people are praising him. A week later they're shouting, "Kill him, crucify him." Jesus was mocked. He was beaten. He was cheered for his death. And even when Jesus is dying on the cross, Luke 23:34 says this. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." You see, Jesus was willing to go to the cross to die for our sins. Something that none of us would be willing to do. And if someone does something mean to us, our initial response is, what can I do to get even? Even just playing pranks and jokes and joking around, we always want to get back just a little bit better, right? Christ didn't do that. I want to read John 3:16 and 17, and it's a verse that many of us know. But John 3:16 and 17 is really the remember why. Remember why God did this. John 3:16 and 17 says this, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him would not perish, but have everlasting life." And the verse continues on there, and here's what it says. It said, "For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." That's grace, guys. That's the same grace that Joseph showed his siblings. And Joseph's a good picture for all of us. There are times where we're humble and there's times where we're not humble. There's times where we're gracious, there's times where we're not gracious. But look at his response when push came to shove at the end of Joseph's life, when he's standing in front of his siblings. There might have been a war going on inside. Man, I just really want to come down on them. Man, I really wish I could just destroy or freak them out. I'm going to mess with them. And we know Joseph does. But look at his response afterwards. It's me. Guys, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And that same thing can be said about Christ's death on the cross. What the Pharisees and the religious leaders of the day meant for evil, God meant it for good. The Bible says if we put our faith, hope, trust, if we put everything we have into Christ, his death on the cross and resurrection from the dead, if we believe that, we're saved. See, what they wanted to do, they ultimately wound up doing something totally different, the Pharisees. So today, guys, my goal for you is I want you just to remember why Christ came to the earth, John 3:16, and what that means. 17 says that he didn't come to condemn, but to save. Hey guys, I am looking forward to when we can come back and do normal Sunday school together, and we're getting to that point. We are going to have services next week, but there's going to be some guidelines that we'll have to follow. And but the more we can go, keep trending the way we're trending, we're going to get to the point where we actually can be in the Sunday school room or the youth room and actually enjoy Sunday school together. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you all again soon. And if you guys need anything, don't hesitate to ask. And again, I'm going to give you guys some digging deeper questions. And just if you need anything, give me a call. If you want to just chat, give me a call. I miss you guys. Talk to you there. Peace out.